Thank you for joining the Beta2Boss podcast. Chase Harmer, I'm your host, and I'm signing on with Matt Theriault, just like stereo. So wanted to bring him on the podcast today. He's been a very successful real estate entrepreneur. I'm a big proponent of residual income. In fact, we are in the fintech space, and we have many different ways that we catapult our business, and it's all residual income, and it comes from a variety of different places. So I'm always interested to talk to other entrepreneurs and people that have built businesses that rely on income that comes whether you work or not. And so we're excited to have Matt on the show and talk about what he's doing today and how he got to where he's at.
Beta2Boss with Chase Harmer. Growth, scale, success.
So Matt, thank you for being a part of the show.
Oh, you bet, Chase. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So, obviously you are where you are. You guys have built, you have a company called Epic Real Estate. You guys are doing commercial, residential. Tell me a little bit about your background and what you guys are doing.
Sure. Yeah, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next, 15 years or so of my life in the music business and did really well for myself until that damn digital download came along and just kind of flipped the whole industry upside down and changed the way people consumed music. And it pretty much put us out of business in about 6 months.
Oh, you guys were the record store, right?
Yeah, well, I was a music producer, but I had a distribution deal with EMI. So I had major label distribution.
Okay.
And, we put out a record pretty much every month. We were in independent hip hop. We weren't on the radio. We weren't on MTV, but we had a strong enough fan base where we'd sell 30, 40,000 units every time we came out. So between myself and my 3 buddies, that was a really good income, especially in your early mid 20s.
Oh, for sure. Sure. Were you like the rapper, or were you guys this beatbox? Was it?
I was the DJ and the beat producer.
Right.
And then I had friends that did all the lyrics and singing and stuff like that.
Cool. Cool. So you guys were in there, and then you kind of got out of that. So what did you transition to next?
Oh, the wonderful industry of bagging groceries. The whole industry was going through massive layoffs. And so there was a lot of people out there looking for jobs right at the same time. There wasn't a whole lot of demand for out of work music entrepreneurs.
Sure.
So, I had to eat, and I didn't have a college degree, so I didn't have the credentials or the paperwork to compete out there in the job market. So, I had to go and just do what I had to do so I could figure out what I was going to do next.
Sure.
And I was there for 6 months probably, waiting for someone to come to my rescue, because life up to that point had been so easy. And I was like, I couldn't believe where I was. Like, this can't last forever. You got to be kidding me. this is not where I'm supposed to be. But I got to a point where I was like, wow, I guess I'm going to be here unless I actually do something about it.
Right.
I really missed my lifestyle. I missed the money. And the most unlikely mentor, or the most unlikely advice that came to me, that what I ultimately ended up following, was from the grocery store manager. I was 34 years old at the time bagging groceries. He was 34 years old as the manager of the store, and he was just 2 years away from actually retiring with his pension.
Cool. And, at 34, you said?
Yeah, he had been bagging groceries out of high school since he was 16. So he was union, 20 years in the union at 36. So
that's legit.
Totally. And he kind of shared with me along the way that he had been able to acquire, a half a dozen apartment buildings, and that the residual income from his apartment buildings was actually going to exceed his pension. And so he was done at 36, and he was going to live a better life in early retirement than he was when he was actually living. And he told me these one words, and I've repeated these words thousands of times since probably. And he said, Matt, real estate, it's the final frontier where the average person, the average guy like me, has a legitimate shot at real wealth. And, at that point in my life, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I knew I wanted money. I knew I had to go learn something new. So I was going to go learn the thing that presented the greatest opportunity of me getting my money back.
Sure.
And that was just like the sign that I needed. And that sent me off on my journey.
Right on, man. It's always hard to take a step back, right? So if you're making all that money and all of a sudden you don't have it, that's hard, because you're living a lifestyle, right? And you got to actually manage that lifestyle too. So you can't just like give everything away and be like, hey, I'm going to start over. It's all good. But
right. There's that song. It's worse to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. Right. And that's kind of how I felt with the money situation.
For sure. So you get into, and when I think about real estate, and, I've had, I don't have a lot of real estate holdings today, but back before 2008, I had a bunch, and I got hit pretty hard during that time, and I just basically was like, F that. So, tell me about how long ago did you start in this business? Was it after that time or was it before that time?
It was before that time. So I was right in, I filed bankruptcy, got divorced, and started bagging groceries all in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And I halfway through 2001, towards the end of 2001 is when I started real estate. And I started as a real estate agent. I just thought that was where you were supposed to start. So I did that for almost 4 years and just realized that, wow, if real estate is really where the wealth is at, it's really on the other side of the desk. Because I just kind of compared my income to what my clients were making, my investor clients. I was like, I want that.
Sure.
So I made that transition. I made a commitment that I would never represent somebody else in the purchase or the sale of a property. I was going to represent myself.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I made that transition. So that was 2006-ish.
Okay.
When I became a full-fledged real estate investor and was no longer an agent.
Right on. So at 2006, before the the ass hit the fan, so to speak, how did that work out for you? You weathered the storm, obviously, made it through.
Yeah.
How many properties did you have at that time? Was it just one, or was it a few? Or
I actually had almost 40.
Wow.
But they all cash flowed.
Mm.
And so I took some hits
during the recession, even when that hit too.
Oh, totally. So I bought everything for cash flow. Like I wasn't a fix and flipper, and I'm still not a fix and flipper. I wasn't speculating on the market. I mean, I was certainly riding the wave up. It was nice, but the rent from the properties was covering the expenses to hold the properties. So I took a little bit of hit. I had to reduce rents to try and maintain tenants.
Yeah.
But I was never at zero. I never lost anything. So I made it through that.
So is your strategy, do you guys do this all locally? Is it all over the United States? How do you do it?
Got it. So we're in Los Angeles, and if you're from Los Angeles and have any understanding of real estate, it's pretty difficult to cash flow here.
I'm in California, so I'm up in Los Gatos. So
oh, there you go.
Yeah, my property up here in cash flow.
Yeah, where are you, Chase? You in the Bay?
I'm in Los Gatos, in the Los Gatos Bay, like right in San Jose. Los Gatos.
Okay, yeah. All right, so you understand.
Yeah.
So you can't cash flow here.
No.
And I had taken a trip, or I met somebody who pointed me in a direction where I took a trip, and I didn't realize in the Midwest and the South, like there are houses there for $50,000.
That's legit.
I know. And I'm born and raised in California. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like I would live in this house for $50,000.
Sure.
And they rent for $700 and $800 at the time. That's what they were renting for. And I was like, well, let me do the math on that. Like this is like better than apartment buildings in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where I started to just build my business virtually all through the Midwest, all through the South. Started in Tennessee and went to St.
obviously management teams and stuff like that. Do you still, so today, obviously you probably have more than 40 now. You guys got this like empire. Is it all still based in the Midwest, or are you kind of just all over the place? Just wherever the deal is?
It's all Midwest and the South. I mean, we have a strong presence in Memphis, in Birmingham, in St. Louis, in Cleveland, and Indianapolis.
Okay. Why specifically those areas?
Two reasons. Initially, what attracted me to those, or to Memphis specifically, were the numbers. You buy a $50,000 house and it rents for $750. That's what initially attracted me out there. What I learned really quickly that is, the risk that most people perceive that's in real estate, it's not in the real estate at all. If you're going to be a cash flowing investor, it's in the property management. So I say real estate is safe. It's the people that are risky.
Sure.
And so I chose the other markets based off of the relationships that I've been able to create and where the people that I trusted.
Gotcha.
So
because those are the guys that are putting up the checks for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can be in the best market. Like all economic indicators can point to say this spot right here is the best place to put your money. And if you don't have good property management there, you're going to have a miserable experience.
Totally.
And you can take a mediocre market with great property management, and that can be a great turnout for you.
So is that the single biggest factor that you look for, is the property management team?
It's number one.
For sure.
I mean, after that, then the numbers have to work. But if I don't have the relationship there, I'm not going there. I've been burnt that way too many times. And for the last 4 years, that's been a hard and fast rule for us.
So $50,000, can you still buy a $50,000 house today in the Midwest?
Yeah. They're probably around 60, 65 now, because this was back in 2007, 2008.
Right.
They don't appreciate real quickly out there, but they are a little bit more than what they were then.
So, I mean, but rents are up. Rents are up definitely here in California. Is that pretty much true across the United States, or?
They've been pretty stable. I mean, they've gone up a little bit, but it's a totally different world than California, and that's what really struck me, and that's why I just jumped all over it. I was like, wow, this is like shooting fish in a barrel.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, I think when people think about real estate, right, and they look at you and what you've accomplished, they go, how in the hell can I do that, right? That just seems like, how do you manage that? What kind of systems do you have to have in place? But ultimately, having that network and the team, but getting started, right? So you're a guy, or gal, and you're like, hey, listen, $65,000 house, cool. Like, whatever, it's making $1,000 a month for whatever that economic situation makes it cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the steps there? Are you putting money down, or do you have to qualify? How are you guys getting all these properties? What's the
Sure. Well, in the beginning, it started, there was an apartment building that I wanted to invest, and I was working through my network, having conversations, trying to find money partners. And the way that the structure was with the attorney, like it had to be an accredited investor. It had to be a minimum investment of, I think it was 150 grand was the minimum. And so I went through a lot of those conversations, and we almost made it. We didn't make it, but I ran into a lot of people that had 50 grand. And they would love to put that in there, but I just had to reject all that money. And when I made this discovery in Memphis, I was like, wow, let me go back and rethink my business model. And if I know I'll have this database of people that want to be involved and have this amount of money, then there's an opportunity here. So I really just kind of put myself in between these cheap properties and people that had this disposable cash that they were looking to place.
Okay.
And so that's how it started. And then we started marketing for our own deals, like marketing straight to distressed sellers, whether they're financially distressed, personally distressed, or the property was in some sort of distress. We just started sending direct mail to them. And we got—
How are you finding those people? Are you guys have some sort of lead list that you guys are able to pull from to get that data?
Yeah, and you can just, you go to a Google search and just say marketing list. You can pull a category of anybody out there.
I know, but most lists suck ass. So I'm just curious. Like,
yeah. But if you pull from the county records and you're pulling up people that are delinquent on their taxes,
got you.
People that have code violations, it's a pretty accurate list.
Yeah, totally.
So we started sending direct mail to them, and I was able to negotiate seller financing on probably the majority of our portfolio. So that's where all the financing came from.
Well, that's awesome. So all you really had to do is qualify with the buyer or the seller, sorry?
Yeah. But if they're in distress, there's not a whole lot of hoops to jump through to qualify. It's not like a bank type situation.
Well, if they're distressed, right? They need some sort of cash, right, up front.
Yep.
So you still have to throw some cash in it, don't you?
Oh, totally. Like one of the questions I would be through our line of questioning was, what are your immediate cash needs? I understand what you want for the property, but what do you need right now? And then how long are you willing to wait for the rest of it? Was kind of the logic there.
So they're like, hey, listen, I need $5K right now. And then if you can give me $20K in like, 3 months or something.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to do it.
For a few years. Yeah. That's how it worked out. Yeah.
So what's the key to like building this business from scratch? Like, how do you do it? Do you, and how do people like work with you? Right. So because you guys have like this system that seems like would make it easy for someone to do what you guys do.
Sure. So we have basically 3 parts of our business. We'll show you how to do it. Like basically we'll just, we have an education side of our business. The second side is we'll do it with you, which is our primary client there are the busy professionals, the doctors, the lawyers. We have a lot of people in the medical industry, people with disposable income that get taxed up the wazoo. They need to put it somewhere. And then we have a fund for accredited investors if they want to place their money with us. So those are the 3 areas of how people work with us.
The accredited investors, is that kind of like something like a Grant Cardone type thing, or?
Yeah, I guess I'm not. I know Grant, and I know
he pulls the money and he buys the commercial properties. When you do that, when you pulling the money together, are you guys buying commercial, or is it still all residential, or do you guys do both, or is it?
Yeah, so we do 2 things. We buy the property, we fix it up, we put the tenant in place, and then we sell it as a cash flowing asset to somebody that didn't want to go out and do it all themselves. Gotcha. So that's one part. The second part is we're buying land and reselling the land on terms. So we're creating basically we're creating a note, we're creating paper. So we have that residual income coming into the fund as well.
How are you guys, what's your strategy to buy land? You know, I had got a pitch to buy land like a long time ago. And, you know, and they were like, look at this area. It's amazing. And like, you know, people bought this for like nothing. And now it's like worth $1 trillion, right? And that was their pitch to buy more. So, and I understand. I mean, there are all those areas that still exist. Definitely not really in California, I would can't say, but you know, how are you guys finding these areas that you think, are you guys just somehow like mapping this out, which you guys, it's all like theory or?
Yeah, well, the theory is, or the logic behind it is, we'll look at major metropolitan areas and then we'll go a 60-minute drive outside of the center of that metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Then we'll draw a big circle around the area, and then we'll draw kind of like a donut. So we got 60 miles out and then like to 120, 180 miles out. And then we focus on that loop around there. Okay. And there's a lot of people that have bought property on speculation when the progress hasn't quite reached them yet and they're tired of waiting for it.
Sure.
There's a lot of people there that have inherited properties that just don't know what to do with it, and they're tired of paying the property taxes on it every year. Right. So those are the people that we get.
No, that totally makes sense. So, you know, obviously, talk to me about the residual income aspect of this, because obviously that's what makes it attractive for guys like me and other guys that were looking for additional ways to allocate their finances or so they can drop some cash.
Sure. So through real estate, you can create residual income really in one of two ways. I mean, sure, there's exceptions out there, but the primary way is as a landlord, right? You buy a property, rent it out, and the tenant pays you each month. That's residual income for you. The second is by being the bank, by buying a house and then selling it on terms and having a note. Okay. So those are the two forms. So our portfolio right now is pretty evenly balanced. We've done a lot of.
So you guys actually do the financing too? Like you guys are the seller financer? Is that right? Okay, cool. You guys are making money. Are you guys selling that note to the bank maybe for a discount and taking your money and running, or are you guys just keeping that money coming in forever? Because I mean, most people are. Okay, so like if a guy wants to take his, like if a guy that invests with you, right, or whatever, so is that for your own stuff or people that are investing with you or investing?
It's for people that are investing with us. I do all of my own investing underneath our fund's umbrella now. So
sure,
yeah,
okay. And I guess the question would be is that, you know, as a person, let's say me, for example, we were like, hey, listen, this is a great idea. We'd like to do this. And you guys are like, hey, cool, we're going to flip this house. We're going to do seller financing. How do I make that money back, right? Or how do I capitalize on that since you're making like a 30-year note?
Sure. So inside the fund, there's a preferred return. So it's like buying a mutual fund type thing.
Gotcha.
You know, you own a share of the company and then you get a return on that, on your shares.
What is a typical return on real estate?
We have a 9% preferred return. Okay. Our target is somewhere between 12 and 13% is what we try to give to our shareholders. Fund is still pretty new. We're just about a year old and we're just starting to hit that point now.
So the 9%, that's an annual number that you guys are being paid. So people just dump money in and they're just getting 9% on the money?
Yep.
Okay.
We account quarterly.
Got you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that there's a lot of systems that go into this too. And, you know, coming from the fintech space and, you know, understanding the residual income, I understand the power of what you're doing and I see how people can get involved. And it sounds like the areas that you guys are targeting, you really guys know what you guys are talking about. So if people want to work with you or find out more about what you guys are doing, how do they get in contact with you?
Sure. A few different ways. I guess the central way, we have a website like everybody else, epicrealestate.com.
Okay.
And then if you go to epicrealestateinvesting.com, that'll open up the iTunes app on your mobile device and that'll take you right to our podcast. So those are probably the two quickest and simplest ways to get in touch with us.
Okay. Well, man, you know, it's been intriguing talking to you because I love the fact that you guys are doing this. There's a lot of guys that are doing similar real estate things, but it sounds like you guys really have it nailed down and it's a really viable concept. And it sounds like it's really easy for people to get involved. What is it, you know, before we sign off here and, you know, have people contact you, what is a meet? So if there's a guy that was sitting back and he's listening to this podcast and he says, you know what, I really want to get involved. I want to do something. It sounds like a great idea. And he has like $10,000. Is a guy like that able to participate? Like what's the minimum amount of money you can put into a fund like this or to invest into a real estate opportunity?
Yeah, it would depend on whether they want to be hands-on and go do all the heavy lifting themselves, or if they want someone to do it for them.
Sure.
So that would be the caveat there. But yeah, I mean, you can start a real estate investing business for 10 grand pretty darn easily. If you have a decent credit score, I mean, you don't need too much more than that to go out and buy a property also. So
Awesome. Well, man, it's been great talking to you. I wish you all the best in your real estate business, and we'll make sure that we get a funnel set up for you guys to send you guys some guys that are interested in your products.
Super. Thanks, Chase. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much, man.
Beta2Boss with Chase Harmer. Growth, scale, success.